Welcome back to Real Ationship Goals, a podcast all about exploring the realities and complexities of healthy relationships. Real Ationship Goals is a project of the Prevention and Education team at the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual violence or harassment and is seeking support services or needs more information, links to resources and our hotline number can be found in the description. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of their organizations or affiliates. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Real Ationship Goals. We are so glad to be back with you. I'm Kyla Wilson. I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Arianna Gaines. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Elsie Narasevich. I also use she, her pronouns.
And my name is Monica Davila. I use they, she pronouns.
And today we are going to be chatting about all things Inside Out 2. We're excited to dive into some fun conversation about a pretty good and a pretty fun movie. Monica has prepared some discussion questions for us today, so we're just going to kind of rock and roll through those. Dive right in?
Dive right in? Yeah. Okay. So my first question starts with favorite and least favorite aspects of the movie. Any situations that stood out to y'all, anything like that?
I feel like my favorite. I just really liked the movie in general. I feel like I was just very impressed with it. I feel like I'm trying to think of least favorite aspects. I will say I had some conflicting feelings about some aspects of how they handled anxiety. Also, just spoilers for Inside Out 2.
Oh yeah,
everyone is sensitive to that. We will be talking about the movie in depth. But just some of the ways that they handled that, there were just moments where I felt like it, as somebody with like generalized anxiety, it's like anxiety isn't just like an emotion; it's also like a disorder to a degree. So I just had some. I think it might also just maybe reading into the movie a little too much, but part of me was just kind of like, oh, there were just some ways where it was like, oh, anxiety is just something that you like feel, and everybody experiences this, which everybody does experience anxiety. But I was just like, ooh, I just feel like there could have been maybe a little bit more.
I get where you're going. It's like when people say, I'm depressed, but it's not to belittle anyone, but like how you were saying, it's also a disorder.
Yeah.
You can get sad a lot, but depression is a whole different thing. Yeah. Kind of like that.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I'm having a harder time articulating it than I was coming out of the movie where I was like, thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. What about you?
I would say when joy and anxiety actually come together and have an honest discussion of like they don't get to choose how Riley turns out as a person.
Yeah.
And just get an understanding of how like two things can exist in one time, but we all experience different types of emotions. So I would say that would be my favorite part of the movie. Least favorite part when Riley played her friends.
Yeah.
I did not like that. Yeah. Played her friends. I said, girl, them been your OGs from the beginning. And then, you get around the new set of friends. You want to make great impressions and things. You don't want to just get off our old friends. So I didn't do it. That was hard. Yeah, I was like, ew.
Okay. My favorite part was I liked the one that was kind of like a full circle moment from the first Inside Out when they were like going down to put some memory in that little pool thingy.
Mm-hmm.
And Joy looked at Sadness and was like, where you go, I go. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. But least favorite part was probably, I have like one that's like not very serious. But when like Riley dyed her hair before she was actually on the team, and I was just like, oh girl, please.
We were all teens
Like,
before.
no.
We wanted to
I
fit in
felt-
before.
Every aspect of this movie so deeply and felt so seen by so many parts of it. And I think that's why some parts of it were just so hard because I could just feel it. I was like, oh, I've been there so entirely.
Well, I mean, I had no doubts that I would have done it too, but like watching it, I was like, oh, come on, baby.
I'll say my silly least favorite part was really early on whenever they first get to camp and Riley and her original friends are goofing off in the locker room. I
Yeah.
was like the secondhand embarrassment
Yeah.
was so hot and so heavy for me. I was like it caused like a physical reaction. And then also I was always very much so the like child who was not doing that. Like as soon as an adult was standing up, I am listening. So it was also just bringing back reminders of something like that where I was like acting a fool.
Names came up to your head.
Oh, first names, last names, addresses.
So my next question actually goes kind of with what Arianna was talking about with joy and anxiety coming together. But my question is, do y'all feel like emotions can contradict one another? What are y'all's thoughts? Yeah. And if y'all had experiences with that. Because I think about how I can have joy, but I'm going to use anxiety, but it's almost like just anxiousness, which I feel like is a little bit different. It's a little not permanent. Because I think with anxiety, I think of it as that disorder, whereas anxiousness is just like can't sit still. But there's times where I'm really excited, but it's like my body doesn't know that excitement is good excitement, and rather than like, it's like anxious, but it's good anxious rather than bad anxious.
Like
or
anticipation.
Anticipation, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. Any emotions that y'all think contradict each other?
I always think also in one of the future emotions that was alluded to, nostalgia. But like thinking back on things sometimes, especially like hard and difficult times, it'll be wrestling with like gratefulness for wonderful aspects and for people. Sometimes also felt like anger as well, and like times that I've been wronged or mistreated, and like all of those things just like I always feel like looking back on the past is extremely complicated emotions wise, just because there's so many of them. I feel like that are all happening at once. And that doesn't mean that like I don't think that's wrong. And I just talked about this with some of my students in one of my groups of like we were talking about how being respected makes you feel, and like I've had students in the past say that it makes them uncomfortable. And I like it, which sounds unusual, but makes sense. I feel like whenever we think about it, especially like if you aren't used to people treating you with respect, or another one I think of is like gifts. Like sometimes gifts can be a good thing and a sweet thing and a wonderful thing, but they can cause feelings of uncomfortability, even though we're grateful, even though they make our hearts happy. At the same time, like just because you're feeling like a negative emotion or quote unquote negative emotion during a quote unquote happy thing, it doesn't like that's not wrong.
I never want to open gifts in front of others and I give them to me.
Fair.
What if you don't like it? Let's be honest.
Right.
Let's be honest. Thanks.
Oh my god.
I had a friend who made a joke. I painted him a picture. I had just got into watercolor. It was just a picture. It was a birthday card. And he was like, thanks. Like looking for the money. And I thought it was funny. That just reminded me of that. Just a reminder, talking about contradicting feelings.
Okay. I think that my most like recent experience with that was like when I got this job. Like I was obviously very happy that I had a job and I was excited about the work that I was going to do, but I was also terrified that I was going to do everything wrong. So I feel like that's my most.
I sit there with you. It's okay.
Every day.
It kind of my experience comes from a little bit from Kyla's, but mostly like with thinking back into the past and mostly thinking about back to my younger self and how I handle situations or how I've been treated by other people and how sometimes most of the time I let things slide under the carpet, and like you think about it now, I'd be like, okay, feelings of anger is coming up, feelings of disappointment is coming up. But I'm also happy where I am today as an adult. So those can kind of contradict each other. It's like, girl, you should have did this back in the day. That would have been so much better. But can't change it. It's happened. It's over with. But I feel like those have been my experiences with that.
It makes me think of that scene where Riley was kind of aftermath of their panic attack. They were thinking about everything they've been doing, especially to their friends who were coming to check up on them. And then Riley started apologizing. Do you think that was grace to herself? Do you think that was regret? What emotion do you think was going through her console or controlling her console? Maybe it's not one that is even in the movie. Let's make up a character.
I think it can be lots of things.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I think it was probably a lot of like genuine sorrow of it's like,
Ooh, sorrow.
of it's just like I was lashing out because I was upset. I'm scared about the future. So many things that she felt were so certain have suddenly become uncertain. Doesn't excuse any of it at all. But I think a lot of it came from, and also just genuine care that she could tell she would hurt her friends. That sucks and that feels bad. I do think there are lots of times whenever people will apologize to make themselves feel better or because it's what they should do. I don't know that was the case for this, but I do want to acknowledge that that is definitely something that happens.
No, I agree. It's okay. And if y'all don't have responses either, like that's okay too. I believe you.
Maybe we'll come back.
Oh, dude, kind of just like having that genuine feeling of like, I don't want to hurt the people that I love the most. And I don't like to see how like they've become distant because of my actions. That's just not good. And you realize that at some point after she had her panic attack and whatnot. And with her apologizing, she was also able to just be vulnerable in that moment with them of like exactly what was going on because it kind of alludes back to the first movie when she first moved the first time and she had friends and she lost contact and that whole connection just ended, period. And when they told her like they were going to different schools, she got scared and stuff like that. But it was like the realization is you got to be able to sit with those emotions, be able to sit in that moment. And sometimes you're just learning as you get older. Like this, she's a teenager. She just became a teenager. So she's learning as she gets older. She's like, she didn't know how to handle that situation back then. So you can see how that would happen. But I'm glad it also showed how she kind of like matured. So that's my thought.
I mean, mine doesn't, I don't really have an emotion that I have associated with it, but also during that whole situation, like she lost her sense of self. And so like she was like regrowing, yeah, I guess regrowing because that it's what anxiety is doing, but like also regrowing like who she, like what her identity was to herself while trying to impress the coaches and impress the older girls and deal with the fact that all of her friends, both of her friends were leaving. So like there was a lot of things going on all at once. So I guess like flustered. I know it's not an option, but
I feel like I don't
clustered.
know. When you say that, I'm like, I've been there. And thinking about that age and what Riley was going through, I probably would have reacted the same. But Kyla, I think it was you who mentioned vulnerability, or Arianna. Someone, yes, Arianna.
I don't remember saying that, so I don't think it was me.
Love vulnerability. I love spaces of vulnerability. And I don't think vulnerability is an emotion in itself, but I think it's a cluster of things. What emotions do y'all think would be there?
Overwhelmed.
What was it?
Overwhelmed.
Like the emotion?
Yeah.
I honestly think, even thinking about mine, I feel anger sometimes too. And you know what? Going back to one of my least favorite aspects, I don't like how anger is done.
Mm.
I just have a very special relationship with anger. I think it holds a very special place, but anger can be there, but it can be gentle too. I think anger would be vulnerability.
He's always represented kind of violent.
Yeah.
But he was doing something that was very gentle in the movie. He's like, I can't be.
Yeah.
That part did make me emotional.
I forgot what he did. He did something, and they were like, "No!" And he was like, "I can't be angry all the time.
Yeah.
Can't be violent all the time."
It's
I
tiring.
think it's after Joy had heard like I can't be happy all the time moment, and when they were out in abyss of the mind. But I think fear would be
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Fear of vulnerability itself, but
Yeah.
also everything that you're holding there.
Fear of the response. But fear what will happen after being vulnerable. I'm trying to think. It's hard because there are other things that I feel like aren't necessarily emotions. I was thinking of like trust. There's another one in order to like be vulnerable. Sometimes you have to have, but in order to have like a successful and healthy vulnerability, you should have trust.
Also at a certain level.
I'm thinking about what you said, it's not an emotion. Could trust be like confidence? Is that an emotion? What am I thinking?
It could be I mean, especially if we're talking about all these things working together to become.
Yeah.
I'm like confidence outright doesn't equal vulnerability, but I'm like, but that's not what we're talking about.
That's my other question is, can two emotions run your console? Which is kind of talking about that cluster within vulnerability. But do you think emotions can be balanced?
Could be.
That is a good response.
You know, want to have a calming demeanor and just like you can have all the emotions you want, just knowing, how to handle situations when they pop up.
Yeah.
When they show up.
About responding healthily to the emotions, I think, and not working to, in a healthy way, not let your emotions control you, I guess, which kind of, to a degree, I guess, goes directly against the whole concept, even though I do love it. Also, I'm speaking from the position of like a very emotionally driven person. I'm very much so guided by my emotions in a lot of ways, for better or for worse. But yeah, I feel like a part of that is like, it is, I don't want to say dangerous because that sounds really like 100%. But I feel like it can be dangerous if you're 100% like one emotion, like all the time. I'm 100% angry right now, just because I feel like we lose some of that like nuance that also allows us to connect with other people. Yeah, because if you are 100% angry and there's not something else in there with it, like I feel like you have a much harder time getting out of that. So if there ever is just one emotion that is running the console, it just like in the movie, like they're gonna be hard to stop. Like anxiety took over and it turned into a whirlwind and it turned into a whole thing to be able to remove her from that position. So I feel like that was actually a very good descriptor of that.
It makes me think of the opposite end of the spectrum that people create of emotions, negative and positive. A positive emotion being joy. But if joy is the only thing that's running it, is there a possibility of being unrealistic? Or even thinking about toxic positivity?
Especially that, I feel.
Yeah, so even thinking about joy controlling the console 24/7 maybe isn't a good thing either. Do you have anything else to add for that question?
Yeah, I can see how that plays out because it does definitely give an unrealistic realm of how people just navigate the world, period. Because no one is happy or feels joy 24/7 all day. No one feels sad 24/7 all day. No one feels like fear, anxiety 24/7. you can feel everything, and possibly you can feel everything at once.
Yeah.
It really just depends on the situation you're in. Um, but yeah, I think it shows how in Inside Out too, it shows how the realistic part needs to come more into play, because in the first Inside Out, Joy was just the only person running that console, and they lost control, and Sadness got kicked out, and just so focused on making sure one aspect of this person's life was just happy, 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 happy. But what's the point of having all these other emotions if they don't ever get to be expressed?
The reason I'm pointing at you is because, sorry, it's so I don't forget, is I feel like that aspect was in the beginning of the movie because it starts with Joy putting a bad memory in the back of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what sequence in the movie it is, middle end, where all the bad memories are in the back of the mind. And so their identity, Riley's identity, isn't even actually her identity. It's just what Joy created. And so then they release all the, I don't know, marbles, globes.
Such an interesting, throughout the entire movie, such an interesting commentary on like repression. Because like literally there is a scene where the like core five emotions or whoever we're used to get bottled up. Like they literally get sealed in like a glass jar. Where Riley's anxiety is suppressing all of those other emotions. That is the only thing that she is feeling right now, is just these feelings of anxiety. And I think so between like that, and then also like you were saying, all of the like bad memories or like the memories associated with quote unquote negative feelings is probably pretty much all of those are ones that are actively by the emotions team being repressed, suppressed.
Like totally off topic, but also like having all of the dark dungeon where all of the big secrets go. I wish that there would have been a little bit more of that, so we could have seen like if they actually like came out of her mouth, or if they were just like not in her brain anymore now that they like weren't locked up, or what that was.
I did like that
just, like,
addition
really
to the movie.
plot.
Well, this will be my last question. Hopefully it's fun. In future movies, say that you get to add an emotion, what emotion would you want to be a character? And bonus points if you could even describe characteristics of the emotion. You mentioned sorrow. I wrote that down earlier. I thought that was really interesting. Don't know what it would look like though.
Do we get to pick the time, like the age that she would be?
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good, because I was actually just thinking in the movie, I guess when I think about it, you know, it's joy, anger, fear, them. They're one team. Then it's anxiety, envy, embarrassment. Yeah, as another team. But I was like, it's not that they're teams, it's just different phases of life.
Yeah.
And I guess teens just get the so-called negative ones. But no, I would love for you to add, that's other bonus point.
Mine would be calmness. In that phase in life, that literally will probably be like the 18 to early 20 phase in your life, because possibly be looking into a career, possibly be going to college. I mean, that's another phase in your life that you have to go through, that you have to navigate through. So calmness, my character, they would be green, like a lighter green.
Sage
green. Sage green. Then they would have their sound bowl. And then boy, they would have them bells. And they would float. They didn't have to stand like the other ones. They would float.
Fun.
And just like just calm.
I like that one a lot. That's super cute. The one that I thought of would be potentially like confidence, as we were talking about it earlier. I feel like confidence would be pretty closely tied in, like with joy, probably.
Their cousins.
Yeah, probably. Just because also the only like color that I could picture was like a yellow, also like a golden like sunflower yellow. I feel like. I also keep picturing, which this probably says a lot. Also, I keep picturing confidence as a man, as having very
Interesting.
masculine qualities.
One of the things, the critiques of the movie, like going back to anger. Why is
Oh,
he
yeah.
a masculine person? Yeah.
But only in Riley, because we get visions of her mom and dad,
everybody else,
couples,
friends.
and they're the same genders as each individual identifies as.
And you said the thing about the hair too.
Riley's is the only one that didn't have hair that matched hers.
Yeah,
But anyways,
I always wondered about that. I always find that interesting.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. They're the staple. I don't know. Not really,
I also
but
feel like love would be a really cute one. A pink love or red. Get some positive red representation.
Oh, mix. It could be pink and red.
Ooh, true. That'd be cool.
maybe I'll do that. Now let me think. Also, do you have one? I'm still thinking.
Felt that mine's an emotion.
Say it.
What do you
It's
think?
okay.
Like interest or like want of like
Curiosity?
yeah, that's a good one. That one. Can I say that or did you want that?
No, go ahead.
Curiosity comes off.
Yeah.
I'm thinking white. There's gonna be a blank slate.
Ooh. We're getting philosophical up in here.
But like I mean wanting obviously she shows an interest in like hockey, but like and her friends and whatever sexual partner eventually, school, job, like wanting more knowledge.
I think
That's
that's
like
awesome.
When you said curiosity, I thought of what is this little dude's name? From Up,
Oh,
the scout.
oh, I know exactly who you're
Oh my
talking
God,
about.
I
I can only think of
don't
Doug
know.
the dog.
That's who I thought. I was
Is
like,
his name like Kenny?
no.
No.
Good afternoon.
Saying in my head. I think good afternoon.
It'll
With
come back.
him, I saw that persona of like an adventurer.
Yeah.
Curiosity is cute. I like that.
You can be orange with the white vest, like the guy.
I don't know what mine would be. I do like love because I do feel like I carry that, but not romantic love.
There could be several loves.
And I thought when you were saying like different colors, that's where I thought of, because there's so much love. There's like, I even feel like curiosity is love.
It could be like quintuplets. And each of them is just a different shade, and they stand in like an ombre wall. Yeah.
They're gonna be like the little aliens from Toy Story.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
thanks for saving us. We are eternally grateful. Okay, you guys. Well, that is all the questions that I have.
That is great. And that's a perfect opportunity for us to pivot. I'll be tossing it back over to Monica because Monica also has our relationship goal for today.
Yeah, so I mean, talking about emotional intelligence, the relationship goal for this episode is going to be communicating clearly, and not expecting people to read between the lines, and not letting people expect that of you. So that is my suggestion goal.
Relationship
Goal.
My recommendation goal. No, that is a great one. Yeah, and speaking of recommendations, you just gave me another perfect transition for Arianna, who's gonna do our recommendation.
Yes. So my recommendation, hopefully this episode comes out like almost at the end of the Texas Fair. So that is my recommendation, going to the fair, ride all the rides. If you like rides, I'm preferably no.
Especially if they're on fire.
Oh,
I don't know what it's
yeah.
called here.
Eat all
Ferris
the
wheel,
foods.
that's about it. Eat all the foods, turkey legs, funnel cakes, have fun.
Drink lemonade.
Incorporate joy.
Oreos.
And I do like fried Oreos.
True. All good recommendations. But yeah, so thanks so much for tuning in for another episode of Relationship Goals. We're so glad to have you here with us. We'll be back next week for another episode, another one of our special topics episode. But in the meantime, if you are wanting to hang out a little bit more, feel free to check us out on Instagram. The Advocacy Center can be found at Advocacy Waco on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're really just wanting some more prevention content, you can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. But in the meantime, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real Ationship Goals. This episode was produced by the Prevention and Education Department of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. Interested in more content from P&E or the Advocacy Center? You can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention or on Instagram and Facebook at Advocacy Waco. Be sure to like this episode and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Bye.